No, tomorrow is.
Tomorrow? Okay.
Yeah, my wife just got home. She's a nurse. She just got home from work.
Well, happy anniversary. Okay, here we go.
Thank you.
Testing. This is Gary. Okay, here we go. Long day, Bob, but you must be proud of your son, huh?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Oh, my gosh, you got lucky with that.
Yeah, he's doing very well.
And deservedly so.
Yeah, he's worked very hard.
Okay, here we go. 3, 2, are you all set?
Yeah.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. 57talk.com, Gary Cubetta back once again from Scottsdale, Arizona, and it's my pleasure to introduce one of the all-time greats in professional wrestling, Bob Orton. Bob, pleasure to have you with us.
Gary, it's a pleasure to be here.
Bob, what year did you start?
72.
Long time ago, huh?
Yeah. Sure doesn't seem like it, but yes, it is.
And it was a whole different world of wrestling back then in 72. You started in Florida and in Georgia. You started off with your dad, right, as a tag team?
Yeah. Not my first match, but the second match I teamed with Dad. And we teamed a little bit, from then on. But actually, we teamed a lot more in about 76.
When you went back to Florida,
when we went back down to Florida.
Yeah. What are some of your earliest memories of? Do you remember Florida way back then?
Sure.
Well, what really hits you? What was?
The talent, being in awe of the guys that I had watched for years on the tube, and being able to be a part of it, and be not too bad as I started off, and I was awful small for back then, but they gave me a chance, and I did all right with it.
Darn well, for sure. I got to ask you this: how did you meet Buck Robley?
Buck and I met in Florida, and we rode together, and what a great guy. Really, really got to know him well, and enjoyed being on the road with him. And later on, of course, he used me in some places, coming in and out doing shows, and it's great to know folks like that.
He was a wrestler in Florida in the early 70s, right?
Yeah.
And then he became a booker, and you worked with him.
Yes.
In Florida, back in the 1970s, they had some of the great stars: Jack Briscoe, Dory Funk. Were you ever in awe of? You had tremendous natural talent as well as your training. Hiro Matsuda, Eddie Graham, and Jack Briscoe. What was it like getting in the ring with these guys?
Oh, like you say, you're in awe at first, but then just realize there's a lot of hard work, and they wouldn't let you slack. You had to really go for it, and they made sure you did. And I really enjoyed it. At that time, wrestling was my life. So yeah, I loved it. Jack was just fantastic.
I remember sometime in the 70s, it might have been maybe 76, 77, 78, you went into the AWA.
Yeah.
And you got a pretty good push. They really what'd you think of Vern's style? He was really into the wrestling, and you were a pure wrestler yourself.
Yeah, it was a pleasure working for Vern, but January is when I had started there.
Right.
And I had to go through that winter. And come October, I went in and said, Vern, I got to go. He goes, you can't do that. I go, Vern, I'm not going to spend another winter up here.
Yeah, one night I got stuck in Minnesota. I missed a flight, and I remember walking out. It was like January 15th out of the airport. It gets cold up there, huh?
You're not kidding.
Did you think you could have done well in the AWA? Because Vern loved technical wrestlers.
Yeah, I think I'd have done just fine. Heck, I was doing pretty darn good, when I left, but the schedule was what I liked. You just worked 3 days a week, and you was home the rest of the time. It's just a shame that home was Minneapolis.
Yeah. You wrestled in some interesting territories. You wrestled in Knoxville, which never got a lot of national coverage in any of the magazines, or you really didn't hear that much about it. And you also wrestled with Angelo Poffo in the ICW.
Right.
What was that like? That's kind of on the fringe of the wrestling world.
Yeah, it was, small shows every night, small towns, but we drew okay, and the talent there was what was unbelievable. Ronnie Garvin, Randy Savage, Lanny Poffo, Bob Root, myself, and hey, I'm sure there's others that don't come to mind, but Knoxville was the same thing. Robert and Ron, Fullers, Ron Wright, Don Carson, Ronnie Garvin, myself, Bob Roop, the Mongolian Stomper, the Great Malenko. I mean, the place was star-studded. From top to bottom, it was a great show.
Sure. Back then, there was a lot more talent overall across the country than there is today. One of the big problems in wrestling is the lack of quantity of stars. And these are two fringe territories, and they both, like you said, pretty well stacked with talent. Lanny Poffo spoke very well of you. I interviewed him about 4 weeks ago, and he said Bob was just a great addition to ICW. Yeah,
Lanny's a pretty sharp fellow. He's a real good wrestler. Never got a real big push anywhere, but he was pretty darn good. I don't know why.
Bob, I remember you went in with Joe Blanchard, and at the time Joe was on the USA Network, and he wanted to have a world title tournament. Do you remember that?
Yeah, Terry Funk and myself and Adrian Adonis and I think made the finals. Yeah. And Adrian won.
What do you remember about that? It really didn't go over that well. Was there a reason? Was Joe trying to do too much?
I never put my finger on it because I was coming in and out. So I was never actually there for long periods of time. And didn't see the show where I was, so I really don't know what the heck the deal was down there. Von Erichs, I think, were still running down there at the time, so maybe the place just wasn't large enough, for both companies.
For all the different groups, yeah, because the Texas had the Funks in the 70s, the Von Erichs with World Class, Joe Blanchard. And Houston, did you wrestle a lot in Houston with Paul Bosch?
Maybe a handful of times. Pleasure working for Paul. Good money man. He paid you very well. Him and Muchnick were probably two of the best. Of course, Vince, I'm sure, is now, but it was always a pleasure to come here or go down to Houston. St. Louis, Missouri being here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you got introduced into the World Wrestling Federation?
Do I remember how I was introduced?
Well, who you were with and how Vince came after you, because you were one of the first people that Vince brought in to go national.
Yeah, I had been there before with the Grand Wizard.
Okay.
I guess 80 or 81 or something like that. Maybe 82, then I think I went back in 84 and got with Roddy.
Right, and of course that you became world famous at that point. Were you surprised the popularity? Well, you were
not really, because wrestling's always been a great show.
Well, you were a heel at the time, but you were on national TV, you were on MTV, you were on NBC.
Right, what McMahon did and the way he lined things up, and had all of the TV coverage that it made it special. But you got to realize he had everybody who was anybody at that time. Just about. I know Flair had his clique down in North Carolina and everything in Georgia, but they just weren't getting that the national attention.
Were you? Yeah, go ahead.
Vince, he corralled just about everybody who wasn't in the NWA, but a lot of those guys came too. So, yeah, he had talent. I mean, just stacked from top to bottom.
Were you surprised to see how quickly the NWA disintegrated?
Well, yes and no. They had what it took, but a lot of the guys who could have probably done them a whole lot of good, there was a group of fellas there that you weren't going to get their spots. Even if you could work them, like dogs and blow them up and every darn thing else. They didn't give everybody a chance. They wanted to keep you down so all them guys could stay on top and make the money.
Okay.
So, yeah, they probably would have made it had they give everybody a chance to show their wares. But a lot of them guys, they held back. Well, you keep hitting the same thing over and over and over and over and over again.
You're talking with Flair and the Road Warriors?
Yeah, and the Sting guy and Luger, and, they were good, don't get me wrong, them guys were pretty darn good, but they just tried to keep a monopoly on the situation. That other great big guy who works for TNT now, I forget his name, Big Blonde. He's got to be getting a little older now, too.
Well, I kind of...
Nash,
yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think that they had, at least in the 80s, they definitely had stagnant talent. And you wrestled, after you left the World Wrestling Federation, you actually went in and wrestled with Gary Hart as your manager in the NWA World Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, I didn't last long there. I just didn't really like what I seen, and I never really got into, because I seen the Click, and I just sat there and I looked at some of these guys, and as far as I'm concerned, couldn't tie my boots, and I'm thinking, I just can't do this. So I went to North Carolina for about a year.
Okay.
That was in between my two New York Johns, and Rick was down there, Roddy was down there, Greg was down there. That's where Roddy and I first got together. And then when I left New York the last time, I went down to the NWA, but with what I saw down there coming from Vince and his, what's the right word, production, I guess, and the way you were treated and where you did and what you did, and where you went, and then to go down there, it was like you've been hell out of first class, and you want to ride first class all the time, and that definitely was Coach. I just couldn't be around it, so I set up things with Japan and went back and forth from here to Tokyo probably 4 or 5 times a year for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years.
You also wrestled with the UWF. Do you remember, who was it, Herb Abrams?
Yeah, Herb Abrams was UWF. I saw some of them old shows on ESPN Classic not too long ago. God, brought back memories.
What was he like?
Oh, Herb, I liked Herb. Just your typical New Yorker.
Okay. And that didn't work out because the UWF folded. Bob, did you have a lot of injuries? I remember hearing that you really got weighed down near the 90s with a number of injuries that slowed you down.
Yeah, basically my lower back, goes out even now today. If I play golf and everything, I got to really be careful. But, once or twice a year, it goes out. Glucosamine has kind of helped, I think. The chondroitin and glucosamine. But still, it goes out once in a while. And in my neck, I've got a ruptured disc, and both knees are shot. I'm sure I'm going to have them replaced. But, I keep putting it on. As long as I can swing a golf club, I'm okay. Although when I get up in the morning, it probably takes me half an hour before I can walk right. But hell, it was worth it.
I've spoken with a lot of wrestlers, and they always say the same thing. They thought when they retired that their bodies would heal, but they were surprised that it worked, and it didn't work out that way. Did you think when you slowed down in the ring that you things would heal up?
Well, I think it kind of works the opposite way, because when you're active and you're still moving and you're going and everything, the bone chips and stuff don't have a chance to settle. And once you quit doing that stuff and everything starts settling, it's not in the right place. And it's tough. But, like I say, I get by just fine, and I still wrestle occasionally. I do the Mickey Rourke circuit, and I got an autograph session next weekend in New Jersey, and they called me today, and along with the autograph session, they're having a show, and they wanted me to wrestle. I said, yeah, but please put me in a tag.
Yeah, good job. Good job. The World Wrestling Federation has treated you very well after retirement. You've been inducted, right?
Yeah. 2005.
Great honor and well deserved.
Yes, flew my wife and I out there for 4 or 5 days, and she and myself, we just had a blast. And I got to be involved in Randy's match a little bit there. And
I saw that.
And it was just great.
Bob, when you see someone like Ric Flair, who's now talking about getting back in the ring, and who knows what his motivation is, but do you wonder how he physically can do that? He's 61.
He's kept working all these years, and the bone chips, like I say, haven't had time to settle. So, and Rick's got a big heart, and when he wants to do something, he's going to do it, and that's just the way it is.
Do you think, you mentioned when you take time off, bone chips do settle and things start to hurt more. You think it's possible that over the last year he's actually started to hurt, and he figures I better get back in the ring before I get crippled up? Could that be possible?
Oh, the way he thinks, yeah. Yeah, that could be possible.
Do you keep in touch with a lot of the guys?
I talked to Roddy and Valentine and Humperdinck and Larry Matizak here in St. Louis. Some of the fellas, yeah.
What do you miss most about being in the ring?
Oh, I would say the thrill you get when you do something and those people really pop.
Yeah.
That's what makes it all worthwhile.
You wrestled in front of some amazing crowds in the early days of the WWF when it went national. Did you ever look out and say, gee, I just can't believe Vince has done this with wrestling? Look out at the crowd, WrestleMania and...
Well, gosh, Hogan was over so darn strong, and a talent laden from guys who'd been on top all over the country. And my dad actually, I don't know, 10, 12 years before that started, he predicted that somebody would have the wherewithal to get everything together and go nationwide, and he was right. When that happened and done right with class, well, history tells the story.
Bob, you knew most of the famous promoters, the big promoters. If it hadn't been Vince, if there hadn't been a Vince Jr., who do you think would have been most likely to take the sport national?
I think probably nobody.
Really?
Really. I don't think them guys like stepping on each other's toes. Graham and the Crockett's on there, they were all happy with what they had. They didn't have the vision. So
you think if it hadn't been for Vince Jr., there would still be, in some form, the NWA, because there would be wrestling. Wrestling survived.
I think there'd still be territories.
Wow.
I sure do. Yeah, I just don't think anybody else could have done what he did TNT, which is that thing with Jarrett and them guys, they would have still been in the NWA.
Yeah.
And then the money people who have backed some of these folks to try to go nationwide would never come along because they wouldn't have been allowed in. Because, everybody had their little thing, Geigel, up here, and Sam Muchnick, and Bruiser and Indy Vern, Shires. Everybody had their own territory, and that's just the way it was. And events come along, and he had the vision. You could see what it could be, and he was right.
So, Bob, if there hadn't been events and we still had the territories, do you think there would be, right now there's a shortage of talent, and it's probably because there's just one legitimate place for wrestlers to earn a living. Do you think if there were all the territories that there would be a greater quantity of wrestlers today?
Oh, I think probably there'd have to be, or those places couldn't stay in business. There's a lot more wrestlers, I think, in the days of the territories, of course. So you're going to have your good ones, crop up here, there, and everywhere. Where now it's like you say, there's just not a whole lot of opportunity for guys to get in the ring and do things on a steady basis. Like when you went to these territories back when I started, you worked, 6 days a week, if not 7. And now, guys maybe work on the weekends, and that's about it. So it's hard to really learn what you need to know, without being in front of a crowd.
Now, in the classic days of wrestling, a great way to pop a territory would be to bring in fresh faces. Fresh faces, the fans see somebody new, they get interested, they come back out, the attendance goes up. I've really thought over the past, ever since Turner folded, that Vince has been really wrestling with this, so to speak, in that there really aren't any fresh faces to bring in. Do you think looking ahead that's going to be a problem in the game, or do you think that they'll be able to develop enough new talent?
Boy, that's a hard question. I think they have awful good talent, although not coming in mass, but here and there, and every once in a while, there'll be somebody really, really come in who's good. One of the most amazing things was when Randy went up. There was Randy, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, and Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 guys went in at the same time, coming out of Louisville. And I don't think that'll happen again soon, but every now and then they get a really good one come up.
Yeah, it was.
But, like you say, it's kind of hard to groom them if you're not out there every night and working in front of the crowds.
Do you think that if you were young today coming up, that it would be difficult for you to get started? Or were you so naturally talented in the ring that this would even be a better time for you because less competition?
Well, my dad, of course, got me in the door. And then from there, it was just what I could do with it. But I think, and now are you saying if Dad was not a wrestler, my dad was not a wrestler?
Well, that's a good point. Having a dad today as a wrestler is a big advantage because you can see the second and third generations are doing very well. So.
Oh, yeah, DiBiase and Rhodes, I think, are doing fantastic. Goldust and Jimmy's boy, I think, is out there, Jimmy Snuka's boy. And
so let's say your dad was in wrestling and you're getting started today. Just looking at the talent, do you think you could go right to the top within? Do you think you'd fit into today's game?
Yeah, I'm sure because my mind would be in the now, and the body, and everything, and the stuff I could do. Well, assuming I could still do that kind of thing. And I was 21 years old. Sure, I'd have had a chance. Although I would have been a little skinny, but I still think with what I did in the ring that I would have got a chance. And then, if things went like they did before and the weight come on and everything, and then you get with the right people and you have the great matches, well, shit, they can't hold you down.
Yeah. Bob, did you ever feel that you got the push that you really deserved, or were you always, or most of the time, a little bit frustrated with that?
Oh, I don't know. I was never real big on not that we haven't done all right, and I've got a nice home and everything. I was never real big on the money and doing the things you had to do in the office and backstage, so to speak. I was pretty content. Now, did it bother me that the matches I had and the guys I work with, they all made a little bit more money than me? Yeah, I kind of nagged. But then I'd look and I'd say, what the hell? I got plenty.
Yeah.
I've always been pretty easygoing and stuff like that, too. And, I just wanted to work hard and have a good match.
Was there one period in your career where you were really satisfied that, this is they're using me right. I'm doing what I need to do?
Oh, the bodyguard thing with Roddy, I think, really got over well, and we were on top in a lot of places, against Hogan and Snuka and stuff like that, and every place was sold out. And I guess that's kind of how you tell if you're doing okay or not.
Yeah,
yeah.
I have to ask you, do you watch your son every week on TV?
Most of the time I do.
Are you nervous watching him, or is it you're a wrestling family? It just comes natural.
Oh, it just comes natural, but they do pretty high risk things now. A lot of folks, and when they do some of that stuff, sometimes I rear end kind of puckers.
Yeah.
But no, I enjoy watching him. I just think he really is a class talent.
Do you travel to the pay-per-views or watch them on pay-per-view? Do you see all of them, the big events?
I watch them on pay-per-view, and I catch probably, if they have 12 a year, I probably catch 8 or 10. There's sometimes I do autograph sessions and small independent shows.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'll be on the road, and I don't get to catch it. But no, if I'm home, I get it.
Do you feel good after his match is over? 99%
of the time, I think, I had a good one.
Made it through another night.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's tremendous. Bob, you've given the fans a lot of years of entertainment, enjoyment. You had a very interesting career. You wrestled in a lot of territories. And I'd just like to thank you. And 2005, the Hall of Fame, very well deserved. I'm very happy to see that. Well,
thank you very much. It's nice to know that your work was appreciated. There's no doubt about that.
And it was. Bob, pleasure to have you on.
All righty.
Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.